held as a prisoner of war in a camp in what I knew as Yugoslavia. With his gift for mimicry, he taught himself German and was elected camp leader, negotiating on behalf of his fellow prisoners. He escaped and in some woods came upon partisans who were fighting against the Germans. He persuaded them to come back with him and liberate his camp. Then, a real adventure began. The photograph Cholo brought had been taken during the escape. The whole episode was an official secret, and Dad was under orders not to talk about it. Cholo was one of the partisans who had helped Dad. He was free to talk. Now the last 6 months made sense. Over the previous winter, Dad and Mum had taken their first long-haul trip together. He took 3 months long service leave for a tour: Greece, Yugoslavia, Germany, France, and the UK. I'd stayed behind with Dad's eldest surviving sister, Claire. Before his apprehension, villagers in Greece had helped Dad evade capture by the Germans, so on their grand tour, Dad and Mum had thrown a thank you party in every Greek village that had sheltered him. The Yugoslav consul in Sydney had given Dad introductions to officials in Yugoslavia, which enabled Dad to be reunited with the partisans who had helped him all those years ago. The food, wine, stories, and dancing had gone on for days. In the 3 months since they'd returned, the family diet had changed. Mum now made salads with feta cheese and olives. She cooked garlic lamb. We had bottles of imported mineral water at the table. Dad was barbecuing cevapi, rich Balkan minced sausages. During all these reunions, one person had been missing. Even though he was a partisan war hero, Cholo had fallen foul of the post-war regime in Yugoslavia and fled via Austria, settling in Melbourne in 1947. There he had established a thriving market garden and nursery and become a wealthy man. In 1972, by now an affluent Australian citizen, he decided he could now go back and visit his family. There he'd renewed many friendships, which had eventually led to an extraordinary conversation with his old comrades. "I've been looking all over Australia for Ralph Churches, but I'm damned if I can find him." There was an outburst of laughter. "Why are you laughing?" "Ralph and his wife were here a week ago. Here's his address." So Cholo came to our front door, and I left Middle-earth. In 1977, my parents returned to Yugoslavia for another round of parties. Then, in 1985, Yugoslav television wanted to make a documentary about the escape story. With Australia's SBS TV, they developed the story and then they approached Dad. Sorry, he told them. He was still bound by the Official Secrets Act. Eventually, after some negotiation between SBS and the Australian Army, Dad was allowed a special release to talk about his experiences. Later, I began to nag Dad to write his story down for his family, and the memoir he wrote became a book, 100 Miles as the Crow Flies. Dad made some inquiries of the Australian and UK authorities to clarify some details, but although he was now free to speak, officialdom would not, which he found incredibly frustrating. Now some official records have opened a little, and more of the story can be written. Given Dad's capacity for elaboration, I expected to be correcting his narrative. However, extraordinary research by Edmund Goldrick through the UK National Archives and those of Slovenia, Australia, and New Zealand shows I was wrong to doubt Dad. Edmund and I have pieced together evidence of a wild adventure. Even though some details are still classified, Dad was true to his word to protect official secrets to the end. His yarn made Tolkien's words pale for a 14-year-old boy in 1972. How a bloke from the Australian bush charmed his way out of prison and then went back for his mates. Part 1. Chapter 1. Setting the Stage. Ralph Churches worked hard to put his farming childhood behind him.